Hey guys, Barry Page here with Legacy Money, and we've got a great video for you today. There's all kinds of financial news, and not just talking about politics, I'm talking about big banking news, big numbers. Things like the Federal Reserve speech from Jerome Powell, the IMF and the World Bank asking for more money printing. And don't worry about the corruption, JP Morgan, Wells Fargo. We've got China overtaking digital currency. You'll want to stay tuned. We'll be right back with all the banking news.
My mission is simple, to help you protect your family and keep more of your money. I'm here to help level the playing field for families and those who seek the truth. There's always a new way to make money. But at the end of the day, it's your family's security and your legacy that matter. And I promise to help you protect what's really important to you. Legacy Money starts now.
All right, let's get started with some banking news. So the Fed speech by Jerome Powell, the chairman, was streamed live on YouTube, Zoom, and a number of other social media platforms, seeking to get the word out there, really putting the Fed chair in a position of power to maybe solve our problems. So let's take a look at some of the other headlines from the New York Times. Fed says economy has a long way to go as Trump calls off stimulus talks. So seeming to put the POTUS and the Fed chair at a conflict there. Fed chair asked for more from Congress, says there's a low risk of overdoing. So he kind of puts himself out of the weeds there by adding that in there, that there is risk of overdoing it. And then, of course, the stock market slid the day that he spoke. So they blame that on calling off the stimulus talk. So there is somewhat of a conflict here going on between the president, Congress, and the Fed. And of course, the news media are all over the story. Here's a banking truth from Ron Paul. Capital comes from savings. It doesn't come from the Federal Reserve. That's right. Just because the Fed can print money doesn't mean that we're going to be better off. And if Chairman Powell didn't have enough encouragement already, the IMF and the World Bank joined Powell in urging governments to keep spending. The more they can spend to protect us from COVID, the better off we'll be, according to them. And of course, through all of this, the banks are making record profits. Goldman Sachs just posted a quarterly return on equity of 17.5% just this last quarter. It's its highest since 2010. Morgan Stanley beat estimates for the third quarter with a revenue of $1 billion. So yes, the banks are raking in record profits through all of this, COVID, spending, stimulus, you name it. And fintech, finance and technology is, of course, a big issue today. The banks are having to compete with many online competitors who don't have the same regulations. And China, of course, is moving ahead with its digital currency, paving the way. Forbes says it's not a Cold War, but they're using digital currency as an insurgency to unseat the U.S. dollar. The Wall Street Journal states that regulators want to build and embrace cryptocurrency here, of course with caution, for your own good. But of course, finance and technology are merging. There's a lot less regulation. People are wanting in on the digital currency Bitcoin boom, and there's a lot less regulation there. So we'll see what happens with that. Of course, again, China is the big news there. And if they control the currency, they control the money, well, They control us. And of course, we have corruption. Where there's banking, there's corruption. J.P. Morgan was just in a settlement to pay $920 million to resolve government investigations for alleged conduct in the precious metals and treasury futures markets. So I don't know how many businesses could survive a $920 million fine, slap on the wrist, the cost of doing business, I suppose, for J.P. Morgan. But that's banking corruption. And then we have Wells Fargo, who, fired about 125 employees to make themselves look better, I guess. But these employees were making false representations. They were applying for economic disaster loans. And so that's big news in banking corruption. So what is the solution? Well, private banking is the solution. Nelson Nash, author of Becoming Your Own Banker, said banking is the most important business in the world. That's why everybody wants in on it. That's why it's such a big deal. So we have to learn to control the banking function in our lives. You can stop storing your money with traditional banks and start warehousing your own wealth in a system that you own and control. And you can do this with dividend-paying life insurance from a mutual company. So if you want to start becoming your own banker, I recommend you read this book, Becoming Your Own Banker, from R. Nelson Nash. It's a best-selling book, and it will tell you everything you need to know, and you'll want to work with an IBC practitioner if you want to go this route. But I suggest you get your education. You don't listen to what the media has to say, and you don't get the arrival syndrome thinking that you know everything. So there's no need in teaching you anything. Always be learning, and the best way to do that is with that financial education. So read this book when you get a chance, Becoming Your Own Banker. So here's a banking truth from the book. The very first principle that must be understood is that you finance everything that you buy. You either pay interest to someone else or you give up interest you could have earned otherwise. Again, from Nelson Nash, author of the book Becoming Your Own Banker. And what he's saying there, what we all have to understand, is that our capital has a cost. So we have to store our capital in the right place that will give us benefits and offer us access to the capital. And financing is something that we need throughout our lifetime. So why hadn't you heard about this before if you're new to infinite banking? Well, frankly, the banks don't want you to know, but they use it themselves. See, large corporations and banks like Walt Disney, McDonald's were founded with whole life dividend paying insurance. The big banks use it. It's part of their tier 1 capital. All of these banks here, all these corporations, these are their logos and trademarks, but they all own life insurance. Of course, they'd never tell you that, but it's been around for centuries and they use it themselves. So banks understand the velocity of money. They like loaning money over and over again. And so if we can learn to use our money and get velocities on it, maybe we're using it to store our capital, maybe we're using it to buy other assets that will produce profits. But we have to keep our money moving. And again, banks like loaning money. And if we can learn to get off of their system and use our own system, then we'll be ahead of the game. So I hope you've enjoyed this video today. And if I can help you in any way, I am an infinite banking practitioner and coach. This is what I do. So if you'd like to learn more, schedule a no-cost, no-obligation review at legacyinsuranceagency.com/IBC. And leave your comments and questions below. And I'll see you in the next video.